In May, the World Health Organization defined gaming disorder as a health condition. It basically says that playing games can cause behavioral problems. Well, a new study conducted by researchers in Oxford says that that is probably bollocks. It says that people who have issues in their lives may turn to playing games to seek contentment, and there's no evidence that games can cause the behavioral problems. Here to get to the bottom of his behavioral problems is Mr. Henry Cooper. How are you doing, sir?
I think it's going to take more than one quick video to unpack me, that's for sure.
So, Henry, who are the who, and who do they think they are saying that gaming disorder is real?
Well, The Who, they're an English rock band formed in 1964 with hits such as Barbara O'Reilly, Pinball Wizard and My Generation.
I think you did the wrong research.
But I think
there,
you might be referring to the World Health Organization, also known as The Who. So they're a United Nations development group dedicated to improving public health across the Union and generally the world. Started up on the 7th of April 1948, which is now known as World Health Day. They're headquartered in Geneva in Switzerland, but they've got 150 country offices, then 6 more regional offices, and have about 7,000 employees all over the world. So it's a pretty big organization. They're kind of a big deal.
I'm kind of a big deal.
So what the hell is gaming disorder?
So that was officially classified in May this year, but it's kind of been floating around for a little while now. And it essentially refers to when gaming is damaging to the player or the person doing it at the expense of all other things. So it includes a number of categories or descriptors, including impaired control over gaming, and that kind of talks about when you play, how long for, how frequently, and importantly, when you eventually stop. Increased priority given to gaming to the detriment of other activities, and this can be other hobbies, a social interaction, or basic life requirements like shopping for food or bathing and keeping yourself clean. Then the last one is gaming despite the negative consequences. This refers to damage to areas like your personal life, your family life, your social life, your education, or your work life and your actual occupation. And to me, this sounds like any other addiction or obsession in general. When the fun stops, you still don't stop, and that's when it can become a problem. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that this all sounds really, really vague for an official clinical condition.
Talking of vague, I mean, there is a bunch of researchers in Oxford who they're not really calling bullshit, they just said that there's not sufficient evidence to say what they're saying. So, not being content with the WHO's classification, Professor Andrew Przybylski, Director of Research at the Oxford Internet Institute, co-authored a study which was published last week.
And he's done a bunch of different studies recently about gaming and psychology and how the two influence each other, and generally he's on the side of gamers and has done a lot of stuff on gambling in gaming and loot boxes and that sort of stuff.
He's on the side of the facts.
He's one of the good guys, man of the people.
So this study amassed data from 1,000 adolescents and their caregivers, and the study says, quote, previous studies have failed to examine the wider context of what's going on in these young people's lives. For the first time, we apply motivational theory and open science principles to investigate if psychological need satisfactions and frustrations in adolescents' daily lives are linked to dysregulated or obsessive gaming engagement. A lot of words there, but the study concludes that based on their data, there is no evidence that gaming causes problems for adolescents.
So it's all about stuff from external factors, right, and what's going on in their personal lives, rather than the game itself.
Our findings provided no evidence suggesting an unhealthy relationship with gaming accounts for substantial emotional, peer, and behavioral problems. The study then goes on to say that it's much more likely that these people already have other problems in their lives, and that gaming is not necessarily the cause. Variations in gaming experience are much more likely to be linked to whether adolescents' basic psychological needs for competence, autonomy, and social belonging are being met, and if they are already experiencing wider functioning issues. Those engaged in dysfunctional gaming are likely to have underlying frustrations and wider psychological functioning issues outside of games. What isn't in dispute here is that some adolescents or people who play games, even if they're young or old, they have behavioral issues. Now, can these issues be caused by games? And that's what's in dispute here. The World Health Organization says, yes, gaming can cause issues. This study seems to say that there's no evidence for that.
Yeah, and that's generally the side I've lent on, because I don't ever really believe that films or art, like visual art, like paintings and stuff, or video games can cause real-world stuff. I think it's a manifestation of your real-world stuff that you then choose to explore through gaming as an outlet, and that's where it kind of comes together and comes to a head.
That seems like a more likely, more rational explanation, more scientific scientific, I would say that people who generally have issues in their lives are more likely to get involved in playing games as some sort of coping strategy to get some sort of contentment out of their lives, and that the games themselves are not causing them, they just maybe amplifying a little bit the problems that they already have. Let's look at an example in the media of how games are seen by the general public and what the general public, and in my eyes maybe the misinformed general public, think about games and their effect on our youth and us as a society. So in an article published by The Telegraph on the 4th of December 2018, it said schools are warning parents that Fortnite is making kids aggressive and violent. It said that kids as young as 6 are being affected by the game. Now, Debbie Innes, deputy head of Widden Primary School in Gloucester, said, quote, "We have a number of children for whom their behaviour has deteriorated as a result of what seems to be playing Fortnite. So aggressive behaviour and language which they have heard online." So this gives you just a general kind of overview of how these games are seen. She says that Fortnite is causing these behavioural issues, and there's no science to this. That's just her observations, right? But this is what gets written in the headlines, and this is just one of many examples of when games, and we're using Fortnite here because it's a great case study because the amount of people playing games, the amount of kids playing games is so much greater than the other games. So I mean, you can rag on Fortnite all you like, but it's just a good example of the way that people think that games cause these issues, and that's just a generally accepted fact by the public, I guess.
Yeah, because when people like this person, she's a teacher, right? So she experiences day-to-day life with kids all the time in great volumes, but she's probably, I don't know for sure, but she's probably not a scientist.
Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science.
So she doesn't have
She's
empirical evidence. She might be.
She's just a stupid school teacher.
Oh, but you're the one who said that.
Teacher. So one part of gaming disorder, according to the WHO, is impaired control over gaming, right? And that is basically gaming addiction, like can fall into that category. Now, on the topic of gaming addiction, which isn't what gaming disorder is, it's just like a small part of it, and it's worth a video discussion in itself. Whether gaming is addictive, can gaming be addictive outside of gambling mechanics, obviously, and that's the topic for a different video, like I said. But briefly on that topic, in March 2018, the BBC reported that Scottish University researcher Andrew Reid said that Fortnite is not addictive, and saying we shouldn't use the term addictive because that could stigmatise regular consumers of video games. And it's just an example of people scapegoating games in the media as a cause for society's wider issues.
Addiction specifically is a chemical process in your brain. Things can be compulsive or obsessive, but they're not technically addictive because it doesn't give you the same neurological feedback, which a lot of people don't seem to understand. And when it comes to Fortnite being addictive, I think it's just like people who are addicted to cigarettes or addicted to alcohol. That's their chosen vice. But the problem is that these are kids and they perhaps don't know better because they've not been taught as such. There's a lot of stuff saying that Fortnite is causing bullying because there's a lot of skins in the game, as everyone knows, and if you're wearing one of the default skins, you're not the cool kid on the playground, so you get bullied. And that's obviously really, really horrible, and no one's condoning that. But that's what kids do, and it is horrible. Yeah. And I feel like you can't blame Fortnite for that. You need to sort the kids out and teach them that this is wrong, because they probably don't know any better.
Kids are going to be arseholes no matter what.
Yeah.
I think that's my takeaway from all this, is that there's no doubt that some kids who play Fortnite can be arseholes, but so can regular kids who don't play Fortnite, right?
The arseholes come to Fortnite, and then lo and behold, they behave like an arsehole.
Yeah.
You asshole.
So in general, kids are arseholes, and that's coming from a guy who owns 2 of them himself.
Well, and coming as a non-parent, it's easy for me to say just take the machine away. Just don't let the kid play it. But in the basic sense of it, yeah, if your kid's playing a video game too much, you're the one paying for that service and that system and the internet and the electricity and all that. Just take it away from them.
Yeah. What this study basically saying is that the WHO, when they classified gaming disorder, didn't look at the fact that, yes, there are arseholes playing games like Fortnite, but that kid was probably already an arsehole to begin with. Whether he plays Fortnite or not,
yeah,
he will be an arsehole. And that's what the WHO, World Health Organization, not the band, that's what they neglected to look at in their studies before they classified gaming disorder.
There are probably arseholes who play chess who are unsportsmanly and are just dicks, but does that mean that chess makes them an arsehole?
Is our sport, is our pastime gaming, is that more likely to get people who are toxic, who have behavioral problems, problems to come in and participate in our chosen pastime because of what it is, right?
No, I don't believe that's the case at all. I think just because it's so popular, we're going to attract more assholes because in terms of volume, there's more people playing it all together. So chances are there's going to be more dickheads in that pool.
Yeah, it's a matter of cause and effect, essentially. Like, what is the root cause of the arseholery?
Asshole mio, oh sada mia.
Right, is it the games itself, like the Who says, or maybe not, like this more recent study suggests? On the topic of the study, it does conclude as follows. We urge healthcare professionals to look more closely at underlying factors such as psychological satisfactions and everyday frustrations to understand why a minority of players feel that they must engage in gaming in an obsessive way. And Przybylski agrees, and he observed, while the growing popularity of gaming has incited concerns from healthcare and mental health professionals, our research provides no compelling evidence that games on their own are to blame for problems facing players. We need better data and the cooperation of video gaming companies if we are to get to the bottom of all of this. And I think that's the important part of that sentence. On their own. Can these games on their own, like if you take a model citizen, right, with no behavioral problems, perfectly balanced, well-rounded person individually, if you take a bunch of them and make them sit down and play games, are they likely to develop gaming disorder as the WHO classifies it? Is that likely? It's not likely at all. That's not going to happen according to this study. And I think that the takeaway for me from all of this is we should stop scapegoating gaming as the cause of some of society's issues. Society has issues. People are arseholes. Yep. Let's stop blaming gaming for it. And this goes into the wider, I mean, we've had discussions. I'm not going to say them right now. We know what we're talking about here, right? American politics and, there are certain laws in that country. I'm not going to say it because we'll get demonetized, but you know what I'm talking about.
If you're playing video games too much and that life choice is affecting your life, that's on you. That's not the video game's fault. That's your choice. Make a different one.
Everything begins with choice.
If you think you're suffering from pretty good gaming addiction, we're going to enable that as much as possible. So go on over to patreon.com and support us at pretty good gaming / pretty good. I don't know what it's called. Patreon.com / pretty good gaming. Join us. Feed the addiction. Feed the beast.
You know you want to.
Leave
just once.
Leave a comment. Leave a like. Hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time. Stay addicted to us, but not to all those pesky video games and Fortnite and whatnot. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.